I'm a little late uploading this one, but I finished listening to the Grace Kelley Dress by Brenda Janowitz, I think is how you pronounce the last name. So this book follows Rocky, who is the bride, Joan, who is the mother of the bride, as the bride herself, and Rose, the seamstress. So it is a triple timeline that follows all three stories. Okay, so it's a lot. Um, so Rocky is our modern bride. She is, when I say modern, she is modern. She is the head of a tech company, and she actually met her fiance trying to pitch her app to his, what are they called? Financial group that, gives money to people if they have a good enough idea. Um, they'll back them. They don't just give the money away. Anyway, so that's how they met. So she is very modern, and her mom gives her her Grace Kelley inspired dress from her mom. And Rocky's like, I don't want to wear the dress, but I don't know how to tell my mother that. And she's very, because her mother and her don't have the best of relationships. She apparently was more of a daddy's girl. And then you have Joan, the mother, as the bride herself. So this is Joan's timeline. Joan is, we find her as she is a sophomore in college, I believe, and she is engaged to Matthew to be married, and her mother had just gifted her the Grace Kelley dress to wear for her wedding. And then you have the seamstress, Rose, back in Paris in the 1950s, I want to say, shortly after Grace Kelley just wore her own wedding dress to be married, and she works for, what's her name? She works for a seamstress, a very famous seamstress who makes these beautiful dresses for weddings, and so she is asked to help create the Grace Kelley inspired dress for the bride, Diana. She wasn't. She was asked by Julien, the butler of the company. He's kind of like, he does all the business stuff for the main designer when the main designer died. But they're trying to keep it secret because if that gets out, then they have to close the. I keep trying to think of the French word. They have to close the business. I wanted to use the French words, but I just can't today, and that's okay. Sorry, I am also trying to pet a cat right now, and so that's why it's so shaky. Anyway, so you have all three timelines, and that's actually how the book is written. So what the first chapter is Rocky's story. The second chapter is her mother's story as the bride herself, and then the third chapter is the seamstress, and it follows that exact pattern throughout the entire book, which is kind of cool. It was a definitely interesting way of writing the book. The only thing I had an issue with was there were a lot of cliffhangers at the ends of a chapter, and you would have to wait until the next round in order to get your answer, and sometimes you didn't even get your answer then, which was kind of frustrating at times. Plus, because I was driving while listening to it, I would, stop the book and then it would start again. I'm like, oh wait, what just happened? Where am I? And it would take me a minute to get back into it. I had to actually look up a picture of the Grace Kelley dress because I had never seen it myself. And then the mom had added the Princess Diana princess sleeves, the big poofy ones. So then I'm trying to picture the dress with the big giant poofy sleeves of Princess Diana, which I have seen her dress, so I at least knew that one. And then Rocky's like, I don't like this dress at all, and I don't want to wear it. And she's dealing with the emotional loss of her father, even though it happened well when she was young. Her fiance goes through some loss as well. The mom goes through some loss in her own story. So there is actually a lot of loss happening in this book, just so you are aware. Overall, I wanted to love it more than I actually did. There was a pretty big, like, revelation at the very end of the book, which was really cool and interesting for the storyline. But at the same time, it happened like right at the end of the book. So then it was like, okay, what happens now? And then it's like, boop, story over. Or at least that's how I felt. That I was like, okay, big revelation, and then story over. To me, it was like, which frustrated me a little bit. I like to find out a little bit more what goes on into the characters' lives, what kind of happens next. And I don't always get that in books, and I get that. Sometimes authors want us to kind of imagine it for ourselves, which is totally fine. Just, sometimes I like a little bit more information. That's just me, though. So that is my review. Happy reading.